Roger Becker, and MDA folks, Haley Bloomquist and Raj Mann, primarily. And want to thank everybody for their efforts to get us to where we are. You can see that the new labels take us through 5 growing seasons, 21 through 25. There will be opportunity for questions as we go, but also at the end. You can type your questions into the chat, and we will be monitoring those throughout the presentation as well. So on the screen, you do see the new label. It's important that you have these new labels in your possession at the time of application. And we'll be going over how you get this label so that you can have it in your possession. This is the dual Magnum label. It is registered on a number of fruits and vegetables. You can see in this opening paragraph, all of them. There you can use this and should use this as an index. Under the different crop groups, they are alphabetical. So hopefully it's easy for you to find the ones that you are looking for. These are the only crops that it is registered for in Minnesota. And then as you go along in this label, and you'll see a little bit later, you'll scroll, but once you identify what crop group the crop is in that you're wanting to apply dual Magnum to, so you can then scroll down and find the specific use instructions for that. I do want to point out that both of these labels are indemnified labels. With dual Magnum, there is a risk of crop injury when you apply it with adjuvants, nitrogen, fertilizers, or other pesticides. You increase the risk of crop injury. So you want to note that part of the directions on the label. This is the Reflex label. You'll see this one is specific to peas, peppers, pumpkins, tomatoes, and squash. And again, both of these labels expire in December of 2025. With the Reflex label, you can tank mix this with other registered products, but note at the end of the opening paragraph that you'll want to test this prior to attempting large-scale mixed applications. Note that in addition to other restrictions, Reflex can only be used in alternate years, and it also has some geographic restrictions for Minnesota. So if you're south of 94, you can't exceed 1 pint per acre. If you're north of 94, but south of Highway 2, plus those additional counties that are listed there, you can't exceed the 0.75 pint per acre. And then you can also see here that we've highlighted the PHI. You can't harvest within 46 days of that application. You can, whoops, I'm sorry. Let me get caught up here over here. On our website, mfvga.org, why is this not working here? mfvga.org, you can get access to the Syngenta labels right from our website. So if you go there and you click, that will take you to the indemnified section of the Syngenta website so that you can get those labels. I do want to bring up, here, sorry. I want to bring up the actual full label for dual Magnum. Stretch that out so it's easier to see. So again, dual Magnum herbicide expires December 31st of 2025, so you can use it for the 25 growing season. If you are, remember to use this beginning as an index. So let's say we want to find rutabaga. So you can see here that it's in crop group 1 under rutabaga. As you're scrolling down the label, you'll see some of the specific indemnification language that is on the label. And Larry will talk about that a little bit more later. You can see some general directions for use. And then you keep looking for the crop group that you're wanting. So crop group 1, you find it here, here's rutabaga. And that means that this right here is your use directions for rutabaga. If you continue down, say you wanted to find sweet potatoes, you'll see that the use directions are slightly different. So you just have to find the crop, use that index to find what crop group it is, and then go on. So say you also then wanted to do broccoli, for instance. You go to that index, you find that it's in crop group 4 and 5. You scroll down like I just did to crop group 4 and 5, and you can see if you're doing pre-emergence and post-emergence, here's the directions. If you're doing transplants, here's the directions. So very user-friendly the way it's been laid out. MDA helped us make some pretty significant changes last year. The feedback that we were receiving from growers is that many of you grow several of these crops. Having it all in one label and being very easy to scroll down and find is been useful for folks. With that, I think I will turn it over to Larry. I'm going to close that label to do that. And Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you to go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. My presentation is going to focus on how to find the website, how to get into it, and then how to get your labels off of the website after you've accepted the indemnification agreement. To get to the website, you simply type in, into Google, you type in Syngenta labels, and then you click on the indemnification label link. And next slide, Beth.
All right.
And you, it's very similar to any app you would download on your smartphone. You create usernames and passwords and so on, and then you can access that anytime you want for years to come for the additional labels that you might be interested in from Syngenta on the indemnification side. Here's some of the text from the registration agreement. The indemnification label website is Syngenta's way of ensuring that the grower is 100% clear on how to use the product, and also the indemnification language, that they've read the directions for use and they've read the indemnification language and fully understand how to use the product and what the language means. It's a way for registrants to keep these tools available to growers throughout the United States. Indemnified labels are not specific to Syngenta. They're very common with other registrants. They just have different ways of accessing them. The language that's on the indemnified label is approved by EPA. And if you don't agree to the terms of the indemnified label, that language, then you shouldn't use the product. You should return that product back to your retailer and choose other methods of weed control for your crop. Next slide. So once you get into the indemnified label website, you can choose the state. You choose your state. You choose the product. In this case, it's Minnesota. You choose dual Magnum. You press the submit button, and then there's a whole series of indemnified labels for dual Magnum in Minnesota. So you have to scroll through the whole list to make sure that you see everything, and then select the one that that you're interested in. So at the very bottom of the screen, you'll say, it says, please select for use on, and it says select crop. You press submit.
I don't have that one there, Larry, where they choose it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So this is the indemnification. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So this is the actual waiver of liability and indemnification agreement. This is essentially the same language that's on the paper label itself. It's just ensuring that the user has read the language and has indicated to Syngenta that he's read the language by clicking on the I agree button. And that's recorded in a database, and you do that for each crop. but you actually only print out the label once. You only need one copy of the label if you want to use it on 50 different crops. But you have to accept the indemnification agreement for each crop that you want to use it on. The final point that we want to make is that on the Reflex label, we want growers to pay special attention to the geographic restrictions on the 24C. They are different than the ones that are on the Section 3 label. The grower is required to have read the Section 3 label and the SLN before he makes the application. And the reason for the geographic restrictions are that fumepicin degrades faster in higher temperatures and higher moisture, which occur in the south. And as you move further north, our use rates get lower, and you can also only use it in alternate years in the furthest north locations. And so we need the product to degrade to a certain level in order for growers to be able to plant their rotational crops and for the product to be safe. For the crop to not have injury the second year. So it's very, very important that these rotational statements be read and understood and correlated with the crops that you plan to plant next year and in some cases the year after. Very, very important. That's not the dual Magnum doesn't have those same conditions. The rotational crop statement is the same on the 24Cs in Section 3 for dual Magnum. So this is again, the waiver language. It says the user is solely liable and therefore waives all claims against Syngenta. You have to do it each calendar year. I can say that we've been doing this since the mid-1990s. We started out on cabbage and onions, and at least I am not aware of any complaints or big issues that we've had with vegetable growers. In 1995, that's like 25 years ago, maybe. So it's been a very, very good partnership between IR Ford, the universities, growers, and Syngenta and the state lead agencies in working with everyone. It's been a good team effort. Is that the last? That's the last slide.
That is the last slide. I do have a private question here. Can we use other? I guess the question is, can we use other brands of Reflex? I don't know if there are other brands. I believe the answer is no, but I'll let Larry address that.
Yeah, so there are other, generic brands of fumepicin out there, but special local needs labels are issued to a specific EPA reg number, EPA registration. And if you were to use another brand of fumepicin, and then the state of Minnesota was doing an inspection, and you showed this generic label and combined it with the Syngenta SLN, you would be making an illegal application. So the answer is no. You cannot use other brands of fumepicin. You must use the one associated with the reg number of EPA registration number of Reflex, for Reflex.
Okay. And then before we move on to the MDA section, are there any other questions? We can, if you have some later, we can come back, but any other questions, you can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Okay, we will go ahead then. Steve Lawrence was not able to be with us today. John, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, but has videoed from one of our previous ones, a section that we felt was important to go ahead and cover here. So John will go ahead and share his screen. And
right, what you see right in front of you gives you kind of the gist of what us as inspectors or ag chemical investigators, what we're looking for. when we're doing our jobs out in the field. I think a lot of assumption is that we're only looking at the co-ops, larger, activity only, but that's not the case. When we do inspection or investigation for that matter, it can go down to a small farm as well. So when we're on site, have a copy of that 24C label when you're using that product. That's going to be something that an inspector is definitely going to be asking for, being that there is a special exemption right now in place in Minnesota. The label is the law. So really, in short, always read that label. And I know a lot of people out there say, well, there's 56 pages to it. Don't let that intimidate you. There's only certain components of that label that most likely is going to apply to your activity. So it's not as intimidating as it may seem. And so the first thing, though, that we're going to look for as we're out in the field is licensing. Should you need to have a license, make sure that you have one, of course. We're going to make sure it's active. We're looking for, of course, a safe working conditions, that your equipment that you use and operate with is the right equipment for the job. Personal protection equipment, we're going to talk about, such as your labels that, today. The PPE that you should be having for both of these labels, both of these products, is long sleeve shirts, long pants, chemical resistant gloves, and that's not a latex glove that you normally are wearing during COVID-19. That's a little more industrial. Shoes and socks, kind of common sense, but you'd be surprised. And for Reflex, also protective eyewear when you're mixing and loading, when you're putting together that product, adding water. Protect your eyes with it. The label specifications, follow it to the T. There's reasons why Syngenta and others have put a lot of time and energy and care into that label. It really is for your own good. It is something that's going to protect you in the end by following that to very specific detail. So when we're out there, also, if you are doing commercial work, we want to make sure you have some application records, and that's going to have the basics, of course, of what the product is, how much chemical you applied, where, when, wind. We're going to get into that a little bit. The environmental site compliance, making sure it's appropriate place to do it. If you read the labels again of these two products, you got to pay attention towards sensitive areas in particular. You don't want to be mixing and loading real close to a stream within 50 feet in particular, or lakes, or any kind of a well. Stay clear of that. So a lot of this seems to be common sense, but once again, it is in the label. All you have to do is pay attention there, and I think you'll be fine. The wind issues, that's where we get into drift. We're going to be getting into that season soon, and that keeps us quite busy as investigators. One thing that is we're really preaching now to a lot of the farming community in particular is talking to the neighbors, making sure that they're aware of what's out there. Drift watch is a good tool to use in especially the vegetable and fruit industry. It's a good guide to go and see what's around you, but talk to your neighbors, get out there, see what's being applied for chemical and products, so that you can have an educated conversation. Often a lot of problems associated with drift could have been done ahead of time if everybody talks. So in other words, basically you want to go and make sure that when you're applying that product, don't be applying it downwind and so forth, onto your neighbors, if you can avoid it. The windage in particular, when you look at dual Magnum, you don't want to be spraying when winds are over 10 miles per hour. Best conditions are 2 to 10. And avoid during temperature inversions laying down the product. You're going to hear that more and more, not just from Syngenta's products, but across the board. We're finding more and more in the industry that not just wind is going to be a factor in having crop damage. So pay attention towards basically what the conditions are with humidity, time of day, and once again, that is in the label. This applies also for Reflex. There really has been the same thing there. Wind speed for there is not to be spraying over 15 miles per hour. But also, again, avoid spraying when there is a temperature inversion. Often people say, well, how do I know if there is one? If you can't visually see that, there is conditions, a lot of the farmers, especially the aerial applicators, they use smoke. So actually using some form of a smoke to go and basically see if an inversion creates somewhat of a cap, if you will, keeps that smoke down, or if the smoke will go up, and that can give you an indication that you're clear for maybe doing an application. A couple of little tips I'm going to throw on both labels here too, again, is we talked about sensitive areas. Also, we're going to talk when we mentioned about the worker protection standard, we're going to go and talk a little bit there about restricted entry intervals. In other words, when you lay down the product, a lot of you watching today, I would assume, have staff that go out, or some form of workers out in the field to do manual labor. In that situation, you don't want to go and throw them right back out when you've put down these products. So for dual, it's going to be a day. It's a 24-hour restricted interval. So that's a lot of time to go and let by before you would want those workers to get back out there. Reflex is 24 as well. So we're definitely going to recommend that WPS standards are followed through with as inspectors if need be. Often we see this like in greenhouse settings, vegetable operations, or fruits, of course, orchards, where again, you're employing workers other than immediate family. The handlers itself, first and foremost, is we have a date there as 18 years of age. If you want to do any of these mixing and loading or any type of work out in the fields there, you have to be 18. We definitely want to go and have that REI that we talked about adhered to. And then there's training requirements. So whoever is running the business, you want to make sure that every year you have an opportunity for all those handlers to go through trainings. And it has to be certified training material. There's a number of EPA approved materials out there on the market today. I personally would start with the EPA. They have a good website, as does MDA. We can go and direct traffic a little bit as far as where to find some of those products where you can get that and do a train the trainer. Central location, you want to have information displayed as far as when they start and stop for working. Decontamination sites always have, again, at least a pint or more of water nearby and a source of water. Get it in your eyes. I'm a farm kid myself, not fun. And so it's very, very important to have the decontamination supplies, soap, water, towels available at any given time. And then, if part of that plan, and we're going to go into a little bit further here as far as what exactly is needed if you had an incident response plan. Like I say, if you're running a commercial operation, that's a requirement. And I think that segues nicely with WPS because of the fact that both of which are good documents that you need to have for your own safety. Here's a copy, a template that we have. You don't have to utilize this one. You can use your own. The main thing, of course, with a response plan is just to have the basic information in there as far as what do you do if there is a problem. So that's going to have all those helpful numbers, your local fire departments, EMS, ambulance service, and so forth. Where do you go if there was a disaster, whether it's a flood, tornado? There you can see the emergency contact list there that you would be filling out. It's a very nice product, I think. And while a lot of smaller operations, it's not a requirement to have because it's just a family-run operation and so forth. But in reality, I personally believe it's helpful for everybody to have it. The Department of Agriculture actually does have a pretty decent website. It's comprehensive. But if you go on the very top of the web page, which is just mda.com, you go on any of your favorite search engines, you can find it. Right on top of it is a toolbar that literally has about 7 different options to pick from. And there you can see it. And the one in particular is pesticide and fertilizer, with a little tractor next to it. You click on that, that's going to go and open up the door to a lot of these tools that I talked to you about. And afterwards, when we get to Q&A, if there's more resources you want, I definitely can have them sent over to Beth. And going to be drift complaints. Whether you have an accident yourself, it happens, or you're drifted upon, that's also on that toolbar on the main page of our website. But I just want to point out also that we prefer that you do have it. There's an email template that you can fill out, and that form then goes right to our dispatch and not to the ACI right away. There is reasons for that other than just time management and so forth. We're in the field quite a bit, starting now in particular. But also a number, and again, I can get this over to Beth, is going to be the drift complaint dispatch number. I also don't like to have 1-800s, you know, get passed around a little bit. It can happen. And that would be 651-201-6333. That number will, again, once go out towards our dispatch, right in the inspection division, so that you can get the ball rolling, and they'll direct traffic, making sure that if you do have a drift complaint, you can get that adhered to immediately, and we can get on it so we can get some resolution.
Okay, as I said, that was pre-recorded, so Steve is not here for questions. But if people do have some questions, the rest of us that are still on can certainly try. And with that, Terry, why don't you go ahead? We'll wrap up here in just a couple minutes. Terry, you're on mute.
There we go.
There you go.
Be good. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about weed control guides and really what's out there. One of the first ones that I really suggest getting a hold of is well, that used to be called the Central States Minnesota, or Central States Guide. Now it's called the Michigan State University Guide. Just an excellent one. Bernie Sandstra did that for many years. Now Bernie is semi-retired, but he still works with that. And the new person there, I see, I just put out a, excuse me, and the one for 2021. Bernie had a very unique way of presenting things. And this one here actually isn't online. The rest of them are online. I guess you have to spend your $6.13 and go over to at the bottom here, it's shop MSU collections, or just type in 2021 weed control guide, Michigan State University, and do that. I don't know why they don't have it online, but they don't. I've talked to them quite a bit. So anyway, so I guess the other thing I just want to spend a few minutes on is picking weed control options. And this isn't only for the products we talk about today, but general here. And I can't overemphasize the fact on weed communication, weed identification, and how really important that is. In my extension career, I had so many calls that would come out and they say, geez, I sprayed XYZ and you know, I got no control. So basically, this is a really good one that's in the Michigan guide. There are other guides out there that I'll get into in a minute here. But, you know, just pick dual magnum. For instance, you can see the grasses it's pretty good at. Common lamb's quarter here is kind of a tough one. Now, you have to remember, when you pick out things that are good or excellent, it means that lower rates of that product can be used to go ahead and to get pretty good control. if it's fair, you may get some control with a higher rate, but often you want to look at another product here, maybe to control that. And you also need to look at the timing of these weeds. That's a big thing also here. And we look at dual magnum real strong on grasses and that type of thing. I want to talk about the Midwest. Go ahead, Beth. The Midwest Vegetable Production Guide. This one is online. There's several states here that put this together annually here. What I do, and I recommend a lot of my people I work with do, is just download it, put it on your desktop. Then you can actually move it over to your cell phone if you really want to. But it's really nice just to have it on your desktop. You can go ahead and click on it anytime you really want to. Nice thing about this one, that we are incorporating a lot of organic products as they become available, and there's some really good comments in it. You know, and I just want to use the idea on guides, and that's what they are. They're guides. There comes a time where they got to cut off information before they can present it, before it's often done. A good example are these two labels that we're looking at today. Dual Magnum and Reflex are basically not in there for Minnesota, because when this had to go to print here back last winter in December, we didn't know if we're going to get them or not. So basically, it's a limit, and they usually say the special need labels will expire on such and such a date. So anyway, I really like this here guide too. It presents a lot of products, but you do have to remember that it does cover several states with that here. Move on, Beth. Here's the one here. This isn't the real current copy, but the Midwest Fruit Production Management Guide. For those of you that are in fruit production, especially berries, I really like it. It covers strawberries really well, along with so many of the other fruits. This one is easily downloadable, and again, you can put it on your desktop or move it over to your cell phone here, and take a look at that. They really give you some good ideas here. There's just a thing on there.
I don't know what happened to the other one, Terry.
Okay, did we lose one? Okay.
I lost that one.
It's
the Purdue one for this year.
Yeah. Anyway, that didn't quite come through, but they're very easily accessible. They put more and more information in them all the time. And again, they're free of charge to download. And I'm not going to spend a lot more time than this here. I know it's been a long time. We promised we'd be out of here in an hour, and we're absolutely a little bit late. Is there any questions on guides or anything like that?
Or any questions on dual magnum in general? Larry is still on as well.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and close our meeting. Beth, do you have some final comments?